Dig a little deeper, see a little clearer, learn from the people who've been there before. Real stories, real experience, real insight. This is Ace Quiz Masterclass.
Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. This is episode 2 of the AI Project Management Masterclass that we are doing, powered by the Teamwork Collection from Atlassian. All right, last week, episode 1 was good. We talked a little bit about what we are supposed to do when we are starting out a project. Today we are going further in that journey. In a minute, I'm going to share my screen and we are going to do a quick review and then look at what today's masterclass will cover, what we'll talk about. Feel free to use chat for any questions that you might have. And I see you right there. Hey, welcome to the stream. And yeah, we've got some people on, but we'll give a couple more minutes for people to join in and then we will begin. In the meantime, let me share my screen. All right. By the way, thank you for the awesome feedback that you guys gave for the episode. But I'm really happy that you guys learned something from the session and you guys took some learnings. And, if you have feedback, again, always happy to hear them. Uh, Let me share my screen and then let's get started. If you're joining us first time, by the way, do consider subscribing because the Quiz channel is the home for everything that we do here at Quiz community. And this session specifically is coming to you from the community-led classes. And if you're joining us for the first time in the Atlassian community is one place where you can learn, grow, and share information. Basically, find it easier than just reading or searching for information and getting stuck. So I have been helped by the community a lot. Luckily I am at a place where I have some knowledge that I've gained over the years. So we are doing this. This is one of my ways of giving back. But before reaching here, I did learn a lot from some of my fellow community leaders or champions, as the new terminology has now come in. Samantha, yes, the first session is recording in this very channel. If you go into the live section, you'll find the episode 1 of the Becoming an AIPM, the AIPM Masterclass. All right, let me hit present and then let's get started. This is what the plan for conversation today is: from business goals to executable work. Quick look at the agenda. This is what we're going to cover about today. We'll look at how we can define the project scope, from goals to setting some boundaries, because I believe that's a very important thing when it comes to project management. Right? We'll understand how we can break work into epic stories and tasks. We'll write one of the most misunderstood things, I believe, in the project management domain, which is the acceptance criteria. We'll talk a little bit about some frameworks. We'll talk about how we can build backlog. And of course, all of this is not just slides. We'll jump into an active system where you can have a look at the Atlassian cloud site as well. And we'll talk about basically everything that we've seen. All right. With that, let me move on and tell you a little bit about myself. Self-promotion. I've been in ecosystem for around almost 9 years now. I've worked with some amazing companies. I have some amazing certifications. I currently work with a company called Nagaro. And yeah, that's about me. And this is what I was talking about. So the first episode, which we did last week on the same time, on the same channel as well, was around project idea and how you set up your first Jira project. Today, we are going to break it down a little further into scope, how we can build prioritization, how you can do backlog, and a little bit about executable work, specifically in the context of Teamwork Collection. All right, we've got somewhere around 20, 30 people overall looking at all the areas where we have. So I think it's a good time to get started. Let's look at some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. All right. So whenever we talk about getting started with work, right, one of the main things or the main issues that happen is around defining the requirements gap, right? So when we talk about the requirement gaps, it basically means that we're talking about the scope that we have to do and connect it to the original requirement that came from the leadership, right? I've got this great line in here which says, "Great PMs bridge the gap between what leadership says and what gets built." Right. So it's not what you define what's in scope, but what's out of scope will drive most of the conversation, right? So that is definitely something that we have to talk about today. Okay, so let's talk about refining the project scope. That's what we had in the agenda. Let's break it down. Let's break it down a little into what this scope framework looks like, right? So when we are talking about, oops, my slides keep shuffling when I'm trying to move between StreamYard. Raghu, yes, 100% okay to miss the first session. It's actually available on this very channel. Go into the live tab, you'll find the episode one. If you're joining us from community-led classes, it will be connected to the RSVP page for the episode one as well. Hey Rohit, glad to see you back here, buddy. Uh, let's get started. So we are talking about the business goal to project scope, where we are talking about what does business goal look like. So before we begin, let me pull up a poll. Okay, I want to see from the project managers that we have, how do you respond to this specific question? Okay, your project has a deadline in 3 weeks. Which statement worries you the most? We haven't decided the scope yet. The backlog has so many items. Everything is urgent. Or customer says, I'll know it when I see it. Or I'll know the end product when I see it. You start building, which is one of the most horror stories for you as a project manager. So while you do that, you can enter one, two, three, or four in the chat, and it will take it as a poll response. And says all of the above. Most and most. What worries you the most? I'm sure all of it worries. For me, it's number three. When somebody says everything is urgent, that means nothing is urgent, right? It's like saying a team is responsible for a task. No, one person is responsible for a task. That's why the assignee is a single select field in Jira. But yeah, really excited to look what you have to say. So most of you have are worried about the scope, which actually ties into the theme of today. That's what we are going to talk about. Uh, that's the framework that we are going to talk about today, right? So when we talk about the scope framework, right? So they've got 5 points for you right there, right? So it says uh, there's the business goal, which basically will always come from the leadership, right? So where you can define a business goal, let's say, for example, improve customer retention by 15% or 20%, 30%, depending on which sector you are in. It could be directional, but it's not executable, because that retain 20% more customers is not a task that you can assign to a developer or somebody who's actually going to work into it. So you got to break it down into a project objective. That's the second section, which is what will this project specifically deliver. So your transition basically takes the reduce retention or increase retention by 15-20% it'll take it to something like, let's say, uh, define an onboarding flow which reduces the weekly churn by 20% or 30%, again depending on the numbers that you are more comfortable with. Now you have something specific, right? You're talking about a specific workflow that you have to build, which will do it. That still may or may not be an executable task by a developer. It depends on how you are framing that question, but you drill it down, and then we'll come to that. We'll come to how you can break it down further, right? The third major step in this framework is identifying what's in scope. So what are you committing to? Whether you're saying, okay, we'll redesign the entire sign up page, or whether you're saying we'll build a welcome email so good that somebody will read it and just want to be a partner, or we will do an in app tutorial. Any of these things could be in scope. or any of these things could be out of scope as well, right? So these are all the epics that you will basically build in Jira. Next comes out of scope, which is just as important as in scope. So when you're talking about out of scope, I feel like a lot of PMs struggle here, because if you're not setting the boundary correctly, right? If you're saying that you're trying to maintain a customer retention program, you're not building a referral program. So while it may overlap at some point, you don't want to step into a territory that is having a different customer focus, right? So not changing something should also be part of your project boundaries, right? So that defines how successful your project will be. Next comes assumptions and constraints. People have gotten really better at that. Over the course of my career, I've seen a lot of PMs who I used to struggle writing those assumptions and constraints. People think this is given. Like, of course, if you're going to implement something, somebody will buy the software. But no, it's always good to mention any and all assumptions that you are thinking which are key to the project. If that does not happen, then this is a risk, right? So calling that out is always good. Like, if you're building a new system, the authentication platform still stays Office 365 if your company is in Office 365. Calling that out in the assumption is a good strategy to make sure that you're not giving some of it just away to struggle for your team members. And same goes for constraints, right? When you have a business goal which is a little more vague, a little more less executable, it's very important. It's much important than a regular project. In that project, to drive those constraints, that we'll build this entire project with these many resources, or these are the tools that we'll use to deliver, or these are the languages in which the developers will code, right? So until you mention that in the scope framework itself, it might get a little tricky. So remember these five things, right? So business goal, project objective, in scope, what is out of scope, and what are your assumptions and constraints. We'll come back to this in the future sessions. Let's talk about what we started the conversation from. How are you breaking a work or a business requirement, decision, whatever you want to call it, which is the priority top one for the organization, into work which can be done or owned by somebody? Yeah. So how do you break work into epics, stories, and tasks? You basically take a scope and break it into pieces so the team can pick it up. Remember work breakdown structure? So if you're coming from Microsoft project or any other, even in your days as Excel, right? You'll take one big chunk of work, break it down until you have something that you can, you know, assign somebody to, or a task that you can manage much more easily, right? So those things are very important. So your title, let's say for example, is something like, you take that specific epic and you break it into 10 stories, and those 10 stories then break it down into subtasks, right? So let me show you how this can be done, or how this translates to a normal person who may not come from the Atlassian ecosystem. So what we call an epic is, let's take an example of the same story that we're talking about, right? So an onboarding redesign is a epic, which is the larger body of work, right? Under that, there are stories to, let's say, fast track the sign up in under 2 minutes, which is an example. Then you can have a task. It doesn't necessarily need to have like a separate site. It can be parallel to your story as well, depending on the type of work. Like, we'll I think in episode 3 or episode 4, we are actually talking about how you can write a good story, which is a very key element of if you're working in a scrum model with teams which are spread across regions. Then of course, then you have your subtask where you're writing your, actual developable tasks or code. There's one rule of thumb which I really like, that I've put it here as well, that if a story takes more than one sprint, it's too big. You got to break it down. You can't have one story spilling over just because, like, if your total effort in a sprint is 80 hours as a team member, you can't pick an 82-hour story. Just can't. right? So there's no point in taking it to a place where you are definitely going to spill it, right? So these levels, basically, as I mentioned, Epic is a larger body of work. Think of it as something which spans multiple sprints. So Epic will span multiple sprints, right? So you might have stories which will come into sprints and then you'll work on it, but your Epic will span multiple sprints. Story is basically a user facing value that you're delivering as a project. As a new user, I can complete sign up in under 2 minutes. That's a story. This is what goes inside the sprint. This is what you plan for or do. Or this is something that your developer can pick up and start working. Something that is demoable, right? That's also very important. Whatever you're developing, you can't say it's built in the universe. It has to be demoable for that customer. A subtask basically is a granular breakdown under that. So let's say, uh, for example, in here, like you writing unit test case for your endpoint, you can mention that as your subtask. You can have more further, like writing this code or this specific aspect of a task. Uh, think of mountain as an epic, a hill as your story, and gravel as your tasks or subtasks, right? If you look it in that direction, then a bunch of mountains can make your mountain range, and that's your project. Terrible, maybe anomaly, but maybe visually it would have been better. I think I had a slide, but it's not in here. All right, we've talked about what the issue hierarchy usually looks like. Okay, we'll come back to this again, but before we move on, let me just tell you a little bit more about the one thing that I was very excited about when we started this session, which is the acceptance criteria. Uh, Acceptance criteria is simply where projects succeed or fail, right? And nobody realizes it. That's the fun part. Nobody realizes how important acceptance criteria is until it's too late. So look at the left column, right? It says it should work on mobile. It's such a bad acceptance criteria. You could actually say what mobile, what screen size, what resolution, which technology, Android, you know, or like iPhone, or if you're talking about screen size, which dimension. All of that is very important to be mentioned in a specific acceptance criteria. Page should load fast. What does fast mean? In which connection? 3G, Wi-Fi. How you are, unless you're specific in your acceptance criteria, it's always going to be a struggle for your team. So it might be easy for you. You, as a Scrum Master, as a PM, are saying, yeah, users should be able to log in, but log in via what? Like which auth? Will there be session tokens which will be applicable for how long? Unless you are mentioning all of these things, like it's always going to be a challenge. Some tester or some developer will come back and not work for it, and like you'll miss that one small piece of the puzzle on which you're just it'll just fall. Okay, I'm gonna take a pause and go to my chat so that we can look at questions. All right, Raghu V. Madhu says, can you give me the size and the effort required in hours by dev and QA? Ooh, that's yeah. I mean, we're not developing right now. We will do that in one of the projects. But like, can you elaborate, Raghu? What do you mean by like size? Are you talking about story points? Which is, don't get me started on story points. It's just a ruse. Oh, by the way, that's also something that is in one of the episodes in the masterclass. We specifically dig into story points and how you can use them and how you should not use them. Okay. When we consider story, is it end to end? Yes. It should ideally be end to end. That's what I mean by demoable. But it doesn't need to be independent from another piece. So, like for example, let's say you're building a payments gateway, right? So, building a form so that it can take inputs from Mastercard could be one story. After the payment is complete, giving a thank you and maybe an email address if they want to have a communication, that can be a separate story. So it has to have some closure in itself. Oh, I see Anne is already responding. So yeah, thank you, Anne. I 100%. I could wear this on a t-shirt. What Anne is saying. Story points have been the bane of my existence because as an agile coach, the amount of hours I wasted telling people how to deploy story points correctly, and at the end is they saying one story point is equal to 1 day. That's the model we are staying with, because some people in the team did not want to put an effort in it. It was just let's not, that's trauma, and that's trauma, and I share that trauma with you. Okay. Thank you, and continue to please help out more people in the chat. We will come back to the chat. Let me move back to the slides once again. So we've talked about acceptance criteria, right? So this is how you're supposed to use it. By the way, this is where your AI can really help you out. You could challenge your AI, like in this case, Rovo, to like give it an ambiguous acceptance criteria, and we'll do this actually. We'll give it a very random ambiguous acceptance criteria. Again, user, the page should load fast, and ask it to make it better. Ask it, find the ambiguity, tell me what's missing, what edge cases have I not covered, right? And then Rovo will show you and make it better. So again, AI makes it better, but don't rely on it completely to just say, "Hey, what would be the acceptance criteria for this?" Right? It's been a while we've been just talking about theory. Let's switch it up a little bit, and let's go to the actual site. If you guys remember, this is the project that we created on the first episode. These are this was the project. This is the first task that we had created. Uh, we'll do some of the conversations here, right? So we'll create an epic, we'll create some tasks, we'll create some subtasks, and we'll see how we can do this in the Atlassian ecosystem, right? So let me first discard, click on create, look at the full mode. I am changing it into an epic. So I'm creating an epic. I'm calling this epic, let's say, for example, customer onboarding request. Okay. Now, this epic summary is basically summary, as the name suggests, is a summary. But the description has to be something that tells you what this epic is supposed to do, right? And the good thing is you can actually use AI, but you have to give it some description. So let's say, for example, you can say the plan is to create a flow. I should copy paste this, right? But I have not written this earlier. But next episode, I'll do that. Create a flow to increase the, oh, not increase, actually, reduce the time taken to onboard a customer. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Rovo. There are, by the way, agents that I could call here, but we'll not touch agents right now. How about we do this? And I ask Rovo to improve this description. Okay, let's see what Rovo comes up with, right? I've not given it much. I've just said there's a customer onboarding request as an epic, and the plan is to create some flows. Let's see. Ooh, it didn't read this description. Come on, you can do this. Let me do this again. By the way, new, like, I'm not a big fan of the new UI. Maybe it will take me a little while to do it, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so it's now thinking improve the description. It's now editing it. There you go. It's now done that. It's updated the description that I was asking it to update. All right, let me because I'm sure people might have some questions. Let me do back to my chat. Samantha says, "Can you zoom in? Font is small to see." Oh yes, thank you so much. I will do that right now. I should be able to do that from. This is not Chrome. I'm just realizing this is not Chrome. Where is zoom button in Safari, guys? I can't find it. This is what happened. Oh, there it is. See, I found it. Zoom. Oh, I could just expand like this. Anyways, right. So let me expand this here. Hopefully, you'll be able to see it much better. There we go. So this was the description that we had written. We'll select the status as to do. I'm assigning this to myself. Let's say, for example, for now, I don't have any sprint, so we'll create into a future sprint in the specific board that we were in, and I'm just creating. All right, my epic is created. Let's look at our epic. This is our epic. Now you can either use AI to summarize this work item. By the way, this is a cool feature. So once I'm just realizing I've not stopped the poll. Let me stop the poll. By the way, most of you said we haven't decided the scope is the most worried point, which is great. I 100% relate to it as well. For me, it was the everything is urgent, but good to hear that some of you have had better than the better customers that I've worked with. Okay, coming back. So, yes, you can use the AI summary. AI summarizer was, I think, one of the first features that Rovo released. You can basically just look at how, uh, no matter how big, that's the key. No matter how big your story or epic or subtask or task is, you could, just summarize it completely, and has always saved a lot of time. You can add your work items as a subtask under here as well. But you'll notice the moment I clicked on it, it's already giving me suggested work items. So let's look at those suggested work items. It's saying you can define the customer onboarding request, map the current onboarding process. It's adding some stories, some tasks, a bug as well to test the onboarding flow. It's adding another task to measure onboarding rollout. You see, I love it. I'm saying create all these child work items under my epic, reduce my work so much I didn't have to plan it, and then I can edit, right? So the goal is not that everything that the AI would do would be great. You then need to basically make sure that you are updating it. So let's say, for example, the priority for this is maybe medium at best. For, let's say, automatic onboarding notification is a little low. I can then update it. So AI is your teammate, not your boss. So let it create, or teammate, even not even teammate, I would say is a tool. Use it as a tool. And when it gives you that information, vet, verify, validate always, because otherwise you'll end up in a system where tickets are being created by AI and just being shipping left, right, and center, and that's not a smart place to be. Uh, Samantha says font is still the same. I am sorry, Samantha. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Hopefully, this is better. Okay, looking again at the chat, Anne and Raghu are talking about sprints. And okay, so we will talk more about sprints. There is one specific session where we are digging deep into how you can use sprints in Jira and use Confluence and all of those to it. Yes, it's better. Thank you, Samantha. But like, we'll not touch sprints right now because again, the goal is that we're starting from basic scratch, like the day one where we created the project, and now we're creating an epic, and we'll look at how we can use Confluence and Loom and all of that as well, right? All right. So you've created the AI has created your tickets. You've updated some of that information. You've looked at what you want to do. You've gotten, let's say, your base structure epic sorted and your story is sorted. How will you document this information? That's where Confluence comes in. Let's now go into Confluence. I am now jumping from here to Confluence in a different tab. All right, here I am. I am creating a space and I'm calling it the same space name that I gave here, which was, I believe, AI PM Masterclass. If that's it, AI PM Masterclass. And let's select a collaboration as the space type. I'm creating the space. One of my favorite things of all time since I've started my journey to cloud, because I was a server and then a data center customer first, was how quick it is. Right, like I started the sentence after clicking, it's already done. The templates are ready. There's a decision document that is available for me to use. There's a meeting notes template that is ready for me to use. And all of this comes out of the box while I can still do much more with Rovo. And I will show you what we can do with Rovo. Right. So Confluence is if you're using Confluence for the first time, seeing Confluence for the first time, Confluence is a wiki. It's a document repository, but it is much more in terms of what it can do now. It used to be a pure document repository, let's call it that. But today it's much more. It's the I wouldn't even call Jira as your single source of truth. I believe Confluence has the power to be your single source of truth and then connect with Jira. Because not everybody in your team would be, let's say your stakeholder might not be, or your project director might not be very comfortable with Jira. But Confluence, on the other hand, is very simple, visual, and you can write stuff and like share with people, collaborate, invite people to collaborate. All of that can happen in Confluence. Now let's do something. All right. So let's ask Rovo create a 5 level framework for customer onboarding request for the Jira project. Oops. What was the key? APM. All right. I've asked it to create a framework for the Jira project APM. Let's see, nothing else. You can see what context I've given it. Let's see what it is pulling on its own, checking, and then giving us information. All right, it's thinking, it's executing. So, oh, by the way, that's also fun to know. While it's doing this parallelly, as you can see, while it's creating it, you can view that information. Now, earlier, it was not a possibility because you could just see Robo using the execute tool functionality, but now it's created that page, right? So it's now done, and it's actually telling you what just happened. So it's telling you that, hey, I've created a custom onboarding form where there are some percentage bands where I've decided. I've given you some usage guidelines as well. I've told you how you can suggest your Jira structure. You can have a story, task, subtask, and bugs. How you can define your progress, how you can use in that specific project. All of that is created already without me even creating anything. And you can create this into this space. I'm just adding that into space. Do note, like, one big thing for you to note if you're again using Confluence here for the first time is because you used AI to create it, you created it. So once the page is saved, it does not say Rovo. It says Sajid created it. I created it. So if I like, it's always on the person who is using. Like you see this tiny button here at the bottom right, which says uses AI. Oops, there we go. Go scroll down. There you go. Uses AI. Please verify. Now verify results. It's important to verify these kind of conversations because at that problem, if you don't have that specific check when you are building your Confluence documentation, you will always find some, because no matter how good an AI is in today's day and age, AI will hallucinate. It will give you some incorrect answer sooner or later. And the worst part of using AI, it will agree with you. So if you tell it a fake story and a fake problem that you have in your project, it will take it as a problem and then build on it, right? Confidence, as Anne puts it, AI has too much of it. And then it'll fall down on that confidence well just as fast and say, oh, my mistake, you're right on your second term. So make sure when you're doing it, you're vetting all of that conversation correctly. All right. We've talked about a little about what Confluence can do in specific of this scenario, how Jira can do it. Let's also look at what can Loom do, right? Because Teamwork Collection has an important piece of the puzzle called Loom. What does Loom do? So let me create a page here. I am creating, let's say, a page here. I am calling a Loom to add directly here. Now, what Loom does is basically helps you record a video message or a conversation or a requirements and then input it directly into here, right? So, like for example, I could either go into my company hub on the left panel here and record a Loom. So think of it as, now let me do it with this account. You see, I have multiple workspaces. That's why it's asking me which workspace I want to use. This is what you can do. You can report bugs, and then like this is one of the latest functionalities, by the way, where you can identify a bug, tell it to Loom will record it, the transcript will then be fed into Rovo will then figure out what the problem is and log issues and create a PR. Right, that's awesome, right? How beautiful that workflow looks like. uh, One of the things that really works well for Loom is how you don't have to re-record. So I make a lot of videos when I use Loom at times as well because I have the ability. Why don't I show you? Let me create a Loom right now. Let's see if it allows two screen right now. Oh, you know what? I won't be able to because I'm using my camera for this stream. That wasn't smart. But let me do this. So in the next episode, I'll create a Loom offline and then we will input that Loom here and we'll see what that does. Another thing that Loom can do, by the way, once you're coming here, see it here, is it can basically give you the ability. For example, look at this one example, right? So I'll mute this one video. You can contribute at specific places of the conversation. So at 2 minute 14-second video that I'm seeing from this one person about Loom mobile app, I can ask a specific question at this specific minute second. So like how you YouTube video you can tag, and say at this point you can have a URL. So you can say at 26 whatever you said, I would need more clarity on that. Right from here, I could select a specific conversation item and then I could, if like respond to it or move stuff around. I could look at the transcript directly from here. I could convert it into another language. I could take it, then give it to Rovo. It's basically anything conversation related in the Atlassian ecosystem will now loop in via Loom, because Loom also can attend your meetings. So you might be using some meeting notes agents. Connect your Loom to your meetings, and what will happen is Loom will take your notes and your meeting minutes and put them in a Confluence page automatically. Let's do that next time. I will invite Loom agent to our next stream. So by the end of the stream, I'll ask Loom to create a meeting minutes. Let's see if we can pull that off. I've not tried that yet on a stream. On Teams and Zoom, it works like a charm. I've not tried it on the stream, so we'll test that out next week. All right, let's head back. Let me switch back to the earlier section where we were talking about some of the slides and talk about prioritizing work, because this is something that uh, is one of the things that as a new PM, when you've broken your work down, right? So you've broken your requirement into epic stories and subtasks or tasks. It's now important to understand how you are prioritizing it, because let's be honest, you can't do everything. Yes, you're a project manager. Yes, you're magic, but it still takes time and you need a priority order to decide what to do first, right? In a world where everything is a P1, right? For a customer, everything is a problem. Everything is, oh, my team is not able to work. You have to fix this right now. How are you figuring it out and telling it to the customer diplomatically? And that's the key word. Because as a PM, a lot of times the job is to not prove them wrong, but show them how it could be uh, a different way as well, right? So let's talk about some of those frameworks how you can do that. uh, I have preferred these four frameworks at multiple points in my career. First is called Moscow, which is basically must have, should have, could have, and won't have. My favorite, won't have. If I could show you my laptop, it has a sticker called won't do. I'll actually show you. Never mind, before the episode ends. But like that's the idea. That's best for scope negotiations. So when you are working with a stakeholder who says everything is critical, right? So you can basically ask him to put those requirements into these four buckets. What is the must have? What is the should have? What is could have? Great, or what is won't have? It's a conversational tool. It's not a spreadsheet, right? So don't take it as very binary, but it helps. It could be somewhere between two, but then you would push, hey, on which side you are leaning more towards. So when you do that, you basically try to get a system where you're prioritizing one task from the other, right? If you want an example of this, in the YouTube video comments after the stream ends, I'll post out a link to a very beautiful video which helps you walk through how you should run the Moscow prioritization framework. Okay, the next one is rice, which is reach multiplied by impact multiplied by confidence divided by effort. It's basically data driven scoring, right? We're talking about product teams where you are much more encouraged to use data driven models, right? So you can score everything numerically and let the math surface. So we're building this feature, this will reach 10 million people, it will have x amount of dollar impact, this is the confidence level that we have to build it, and this is the effort that it will take. Now you take that same parameter and use rice to basically put in values for all the items that you have in your backlog, and then you basically have your winner, right? Which is the most prioritized, or which should be the most prioritized item in your bucket. Versus effort is much more old school. It's a classic 2 by 2 matrix. You can say high value, low effort, which is your quick wins. Then you can do them now. High value, high effort, those are big bets. Like for example, high value, low effort is doing a community session with you amazing people, right? It's high value, it's not a lot of effort for me, but it's in that amazing quick wins. Every time I feel like, I've learned something from the community, I try to do a session so that I give back to the community as well. uh, High value high effort would be building a system where we have to build the entire build a, let's say, a high functioning robo agent and giving it to some people for free or whatever, like something bigger which will take more effort but it will give more value as well to end customers. Those are your big bets, right? So plan them out very carefully. Low value high effort, basically kill them, right? Whatever is, like, for example, I'm making a video which is very niche for Rovo and it's taking me 10 hours to build it, I'll kill it. Low value high effort, right? 10 hours one video does not make sense. When there are so many amazing creators who are making videos on Rovo, I make videos on Rovo as well, but the effort will kill that, right? So you want to kill that. And in that manner, low value low effort, kind of in the same bracket, like what's the purpose, why you are doing it, so helps you make that decision. And it's a little more better way of doing that. Answers Mondo is another. Yes, that's also kind of in the lines of Moscow, like must do, ought to do, nice to do, don't need, right? So yeah, you can do that. WSDF is also one of the frameworks that you're using. And saying, are you on safe? Nobody's safe when they're using safe. I had this superior in one of my teams used to say that. Uh, all right, so coming back to weighted scoring, yes, you can use some custom criteria to define that, but the goal is all your backlog items should be using the same framework. So you shouldn't have your epics in Moscow, then weigh your stories in Rise, because then you won't be able to categorize them properly. Okay, let's take a bigger step back. Oh, let's take a step back and uh, use it. So uh, let me give me 1 second. Let me look at the comment. Yes, that's right. That's right. And okay, so yes, so this is your project scope, project space, and this is what we've talked about a little bit about Jira, a little bit of Confluence, a little bit of Loom. What Jira does is helps you build your backlog, helps you build your board sprints. That's your work tracker, right? Literally, that's your work tracker. Confluence is where your context lives, where your decision lives, where you build your scope documents, and it's basically the why behind the tickets. Loom is more async, So if you want to reduce the amount of time you're spending in meetings, use Loom. You can use it to record a video about something that you're working on, about something that your team is planning to build on, and then send it to people. They will work asynchronously. Specifically, if you got team members who just spread across and not in the same location, meeting most of the times don't make sense unless you are collaborating and brainstorming. Meetings usually end up information sharing over one conversation, right? You don't need to be sitting for 1 hour to share your project update, right? You could record a Loom ideally and just send it to your team members whenever they have time. They see it, hear it, ask you question back. And Rovo is basically the AI partner across all the three. It can generate, refine, review. It works all the places in Jira, in Confluence, and in Loom, so it will help you to uh, view those kind of things in a better fashion. All right, let's now take a pause and go back to the Atlassian site that we had earlier, so that we can look at what we were doing in Jira. All right, so we've got the epic done. We've got the stories done. We've got the subtypes under there as well. Let's talk a little bit more about how it looks and how it works as well. Let's open one specific story. Oh, also because we mentioned that we'll start from scratch. So if this is the first time you're seeing a full-fledged story, let me just walk you through to what you're seeing, right? So while the UI continuously changes, some of the things will have always consistently stayed the same, which is comments. So this is where you converse with people if you have questions. So you can ask questions like, who is working on this? So it'll see if there is an assignee. It'll tell you that right now, um, Rovo is asking me to assign it to somebody because there is no assignee. But that's where you can add your comments. History will tell you what has happened in the life cycle of this ticket. Work log is basically when you're trying to input some time into your projects. I worked with people who wanted to capture every minute of time that somebody spent on a Jira ticket. And for them, um, no hate for them. There are apps that are available where you can click start work, and it will not this start work, but like hit start work on a clock, and it'll start recording the amount of time it's doing. Or you could do it a little more old school way, where you can click on these three dots, click on log work, and say, hey, I worked on 2 hours for this specific project. When you do that, you'll be able to see, your original estimate, your time tracking. You can mention how much time you're supposed to spend on a project like this, and then you could do that as well. I'll take a pause and ask another poll that I had that I wanted to ask you guys, specifically around project managers that we have today. Okay, this should have been a little earlier, but let's see. Which one of these have you personally done? Now be honest, okay? Have you created a task with the same summary of description? Have you added ASAP as a priority? Have you changed the scope after development? Or have you added acceptance criteria or updated acceptance criteria while the testing was ongoing? Be honest, PMs, what is one thing that you've done in your career? While you guys tell me that, let me just scroll this up and show you how the life cycle of a ticket, which is workflow, which we covered actually in uh, the first episode that we did, how that is different for these multiple issue types that we have created, right? So let's look at this one. This is a story. A story can be, again, all of this is customizable. The story's workflow is very simple. It's to do, in progress, and done, and you can move around anywhere. Right? Let's go back to the epic. Let's look at the bugs life cycle. Oh, in the bug actually has the same to do, in progress, and done here. I think it was the other one, or maybe it was the task, or maybe it's now all of them are showing the same one. Let's look at the task also. Awesome. Now, so the new schemes are creating all of them in the name to do in progress and done. If you want to add review, you could add it to one. How you can go into that section is you can click on these three dots and click on this space settings. When you do that, you'll be able to look at much more than a PM should actually look. So just something as an FII, this is where the Jira admins thrive. Like somebody like me who's worked a lot in Jira administration, I'm sure a lot of PMs have worn that hat as well, either pre or post their journey as a PM. But this is where all of the workflow stays. So you can, in this project, there is one workflow, software simple work for PM, which is this one workflow that we are seeing to do in progress done. If we want to change, we can either edit it, we can either add more workflows from the backend and pull it out. Okay, let me just look at the poll. It says, what have you personally done? You've changed the scope after development. I think a lot of us have done that. A lot of us have changed the scope after development. And it's just a bad place because we are told by sponsors that, hey, this is a thing that has to be done, and this is how you are supposed to do it. So you end up changing the scope. Not a good thing, but yeah, I agree. I've done that too. But I've not added ASAP as a priority, right? Like, not everything is P1. Never. Okay. Going back to the project itself. So yes, so we've got the epics, we've got the stories, we've got the subtasks in there. On the right hand side, you're seeing some of the basic items. So you can add your due dates, you can add your start dates, you can add your labels. uh, Labels is a tricky feature for a first time or a beginner, right? Because if you, let's say, type business like this, which I tend to, when I'm typing, I tend to make spelling mistakes. It will create it as a new label rather than taking the business, which was already there. So if you're using labels, you have to be extremely peculiar about the spelling that you're typing, because then you can't not, it will create a new label, your reporting will go off. I don't recommend actually using labels for beginners, because first understand how you are able to use those. I mean, you're free to use, but don't use it for reporting because it might cause some issues there. All right, let me stop the poll and come back to what we are talking about. So, yep, you can see the priority is right here. The priority is critical, highest, high, medium. You can change this as well. This informational, by the way, is a new addition. It didn't used to be there. Uh, Let me know in the comments if you've seen this first time here as well, because it used to be till lowest, and they Atlassian has recently added this informational as a new priority in new sites that are being created. Then you've got your original estimate, time tracking, all of those information around sprints. So you can add in more sprints here. And in the future episode where we talk about sprints specifically, we'll cover this. Uh, there are automations. We will talk about automations in one of the future episodes. Automations basically help you, as the name suggests, fasten the repeatable tasks that you may want to have. Let's say every time you want to create a subtask in to do status, you want the resolution of the parent to be set to unresolved. It's a very random hypothetical story scenario that I just told you, but you could build something like that, right? So wouldn't have to manually go and change it. You could automate it with a rule. It used to be like, it's now called flows. If we go here, automation flows is one thing that came here. Let me show you here. See, in here it says flows. Now that's the funny thing, right? If you're a frequent attendees in these sessions in community-led classes, you've seen my good friend Rob struggle with this as well. So here it says flows, but in from where we came, it still says create new automation rules. So for somebody who's newer, you might be struggling. But automation rules are automation flows. They've just rebranded it to a different name. All right, that let me take that. That's the basically panel that you're seeing on the left hand side. Let me do a quick time check. If 5 minutes away from the end of the session, we should actually cover the other thing. So give me a second. Oops, no, not the right. Here it is. All right, let me look at what else. What are the slides that I wanted to cover today? All right. Oh, yeah, we've not talked about this. So while we've talked about AI and how you can use and refine it, refine your descriptions, refine your summaries, refine your acceptance criteria, don't use it to create, right? Like you can start with your business goal. You can tell it how you want to refine it. So like give it give it context around give it context around what your business requirement is, right? Then ask AI to, as I mentioned earlier, refine the ambiguity and find the missing edge cases, right? You can tell AI. When I say tell AI, that I literally mean, uh, let me come here and go to the epic, and let's say go to the bug and ask Rovo. Oh no, help me write edge cases which will be beneficial for this story. Now let's just told it to write some edge cases for this story. Let's see what it does. While it does, it's kind of touching on the fact that I was mentioning earlier, right? Like it has some context. It's seen what it is supposed to do. What are they? They're checking onboarding flows. They're doing defects, but it has given you some information. Like for example, empty required fields should be edge cases. You should have special characters in your input. You have duplicate submissions. It's actually giving you quite a long list. It's if there is an automation trigger failure, what happens then? If there's a notification delivery failure, what happens then? You could ideally take all of this information and say add oops no add all these to a Confluence page. Now, this is the beauty between Confluence and Jira. I just asked it to Confluence page. I've not told it where, how, or how to modify it, right? But and I am in Jira right now, as you can see. But if I go to Confluence and I go back and I click on this tiny button, give it a minute. I come here. This is not. Oh, yeah, I understand what's the problem. So both of these are a little different sites, I believe. No, they're actually the same sites. Why is it not doing it? Wait, let me close this, refresh this page. It will basically pick up the same Rovo chat that I was having in Jira and continue it in Confluence. So it's trying to understand where it can create a page. Let me now go back here. Yeah, there it is. See, it's not broken. It just didn't refresh. So it's now I'm on Confluence, so now it can see. It's easier here because see it found the APM space in Confluence also. I didn't tell it. It spent some time. Now it's going to create a Confluence page from the edge cases that I asked it to create, and it'll make it so it says, "Good, I found the APM space with Confluence. Now let me create a new page with all the edge cases." It'll create that page. Will give me to review because that's again the important part when it's coming to the AI, how you are managing the reviews, and then we will be able to close it. While it does this, I think I had one more final poll which I wanted to ask you guys, which is this one. What happens when we use AI to generate requirements and AI to review those requirements? We've created a productivity loop, it's a feedback loop, it's automated mediocrity, or have we created a Jira Skynet or an Atlassian Skynet? Tell me one, two, three, and four in the chat, and we'll see what you think. I think it's a Jira Skynet. Anyway, so it's created the page, and it's saying it's done that. Let's see where it is. See, it's created a page, but I can't see it. Can you see it? The page is also like to APM 11 story. It's saying the page. Oh, it's here. It's nice. So it's giving me right here. Here it is. So this is the page. It actually created it. I can now see that link as well. You can copy that link. It's added the entire edge case document right here in the story that we were talking about. Whichever kind of loop, I still want a human in loop. Yeah, and I 100% agree. Uh, but yeah, it's kind of like automated mediocrity, right? Like that's what I recommend whenever I'm telling somebody on how they can get started with their AI journey. It's good to start not it's good to not start from a blank slate, but don't give it empty without any context as well, because then you might get just confidence packaged in a word vomit, right? So you want it to like have some context on what you're trying to do, from the epic, from the story, from the subtask. Rovo looked at all of it, understood what my customer onboarding form will look like, and then created these verification scenarios. Now I can spend time with my QAT guy or girl and just sit with him or her and refine this page, and then whatever needs to be updated in this page, I can directly do it here. All right, nearing the end of the hour, let me just show you what the final set of slides said. I think that's all we had today. Yeah, so this was a quote that I found. It says, "Great project managers don't just collect requirements; they transform ideas into clear and importantly prioritized work that teams can understand." Right. So this has been today's focus or today's summary. We spoke a little bit about project scope. We identified how you can structure a Jira backlog, how you can break it down. We used AI, but you can do it manually as well. How you can write testable criteria, make it smart, right? I think episode 6 we talk about smart more specifically, which is specific, measurable, achievable, reliable, or testable. I think that's what smart is. Then you can leverage AI for your requirements, where you can use it to generate, but I would recommend only generate when you have some context, refine and review for sure, and most importantly, challenge. Uh, if you had more time, what I would ideally love to do is ask it more questions around, hey, do you think this makes sense, or what should I do more in scenarios like this, where I can get better for my edge cases, or like just challenge on one specific item and see it fail, tell you more, in that specific order. All right, I'll stop the poll. That I believe brings us to the end of today's session. I am not wrong. Let's check. Yep, that's it. Next week we talk. Not next week. I think we are taking 2 weeks break, and then we are connecting in September again for episode 3. We're going to talk about aligned teams and identifying predictable delivery. You can check out all the details at ace.atlassian.com/community-led classes. Uh, if you are watching us directly on YouTube or LinkedIn or any other platform, you can actually go to the link, and from there you'll be able to find the source page and see that. But yes, if you learned something today, like, subscribe, and share this stream to most of the people that you would want to in your PM domain, so they learn about this as well. And it was super fun moderating today's session. It was super fun. It's always fun to have familiar faces in chat. And Rohit, thank you for joining. Uh, Somehow there it is. But yeah, I'll see you guys on Friday. We have a very interesting conversation on Rob and Saj asking for trouble. That's a live stream we do, not about tech. It's a live stream on this channel where we talk about community, charity, and my good friend Jimmy and King Bob. Bob Ben is joining on Friday. I'll see you there. Thank you, everybody, and have a really good rest of the week.
Dig a little deeper.